get started on that.
In progress.
Okay. Path. Yeah, through a world that, well, let's face it,
Okay. Now, did I muck it up or did I?
often welcome to the deep dive,
Here we go.
your shortcut to being truly well informed. Today, we're really getting into a fascinating story. It's one man's pretty extraordinary personal path. Yeah, through a world that, well, let's face it, often feels full of confusion, debt, and what some people are calling legal fictions.
Hmm.
Our focus for this deep dive is really unpacking his unique journey. He went from public service to finding this profound sense of peace and what he calls lawful freedom, specifically in the private domain.
Right.
It's important to say this isn't framed as like rebellion or anarchy. It
Yeah.
seems rooted much more in comprehension,
Well,
understanding the systems.
exactly. And what's really compelling here is how it becomes this exploration of, understanding the frameworks underneath it all, the ones that govern so much of our lives.
Uh,
And then his very specific proactive steps to navigate them differently. It's not just theory, it's deeply personal application.
okay, so let's start at the beginning. His origins. He started out with really honorable intentions, right, as a peace officer.
Mm. That's right. Driven by a genuine desire to serve and protect. He was, proud of the work, believed he was doing good.
But something shifted.
Yes. His journey took this interesting turn. He started noticing patterns where enforcement felt less about actual peacekeeping,
And more about,
more about compelling compliance,
yeah,
with specific administrative policies. And he came to this, well, startling realization for him
which was.
that he felt he was being trained mainly to enforce policy, not necessarily preserve peace in the fundamental sense, and that the system, maybe unintentionally, was sort of quietly guiding people into a life he started to see as, well, servitude.
Wow, that's a pretty big shift in perspective. And this wasn't just an intellectual exercise for him, was it? There were personal things happening too.
Definitely. Personal catalysts like near-death experiences, apparently, and a growing sense of his role as, a husband and father.
Okay.
And then you layer on the broader stuff happening in the early 2000s, especially post 9/11. That really intensified his search for, let's call it, a deeper truth.
So connecting that personal journey to the bigger picture.
Hmm.
What was this greater truth he felt he uncovered?
Well, he really dug into historical legal documents, and his argument became that modern governance, starting right from birth registration, operates on a kind of implied consent.
It's implied consent.
Yeah. He basically posits that governments haven't fully disclosed the nature of the contracts they enforce on people.
Hmm.
So his view is that without really explicit, fully informed agreement, generations were sort of steered into what he calls commercial servitude.
Through what kind of mechanisms?
He points to things like, well, birth registration itself, taxation, licensing, operating under what he terms a presumed corporate identity.
Can you clarify that? The presumed corporate identity part.
Sure. It's basically the legal argument that the system often treats individuals not as sovereign people, but more like corporate entities
Hmm.
or franchises, maybe tied to the name registered on, say, a birth certificate. And he even saw the banking system as part of this, claiming personal earnings as taxable profit derived from this corporate person.
So, all right, he develops this understanding, this profound realization for him. What did he actually do?
Well, in 2003, he made a very decisive move. He formally declared himself a man living on the land called Canada, not a corporate fiction in it.
Okay, but what does that mean in practical terms? Declaring yourself something.
Right, good question. It involved practical steps. He lawfully notified relevant government bodies, agencies, correcting what he called the record.
So, like paperwork, formal notices.
Exactly. Formally asserting his chosen status, reclaiming dominion, as he puts it, over his name and his estate. He then structured a private trust.
The trust.
Yes, and secured his declarations. This was the legal mechanism he used to try and separate his personal identity and assets from that public, corporate presumed identity he rejected.
And his life now, how is it described?
It's described as being rooted in that peace he found. He apparently lives under what he calls God's law, not man's fiction.
Meaning,
Meaning, he posits that individual rights and responsibilities come directly from a higher inherent law, not from human-made statutes or regulations, which he sees as applying mainly to those fictional corporate entities we talked about.
so he doesn't engage with the system in the same way.
He states he does not argue, and importantly, he does not consent to things he views as attempts to pull him back into that public system.
Interesting.
And a really key point here is that he sees this as not just his story, it is a model.
A model for others.
Yes. He now spends his time teaching other people how they might uh, exit the public system, how to assert their lawful standing and structure their own affairs.
How, using what tools?
Through things like private trusts and PMAs. PMAs are private membership associations. They're specific legal structures used to operate and collaborate outside some conventional regulations.
And the goal isn't just personal gain.
Apparently not. His stated aim is to access resources, but for collective good. Things like funding housing, healing initiatives, leaving a positive legacy.
So, wrapping this up, this whole journey really shows what can happen when someone prioritizes, well, comprehension over control, maybe truth over tradition, and faith over fear. It's quite a different way of thinking about moving from public to private.
It definitely is. And maybe a thought for you, the listener, to consider. How do you perceive that line between public and private living in your own life? Is this path of lawful freedom, as he describes it? Is it possible? Is it real? Is it something waiting for you to explore?
Welcome to the Deep Dive, your shortcut to being truly well informed. Today, we're really getting into a fascinating story. It's one man's pretty extraordinary personal path. Yeah, through a
So I think you
world that,
restarted there, not
well,
John.
let's face it, often feels full of confusion, debt, and what some people are calling legal fictions.
You're muted, John.
Oh, yeah, you're muted, John.
And
There you go.
There you go. You're back.
I got a little hand that's going over top of this where I don't normally have it. I got a little hair. Anyways, yes. And I was aware that it repeated, but it was just on the finishing. So it's comprehension over control, truth over tradition, faith over fear, and it is possible, it is real, and it's waiting for everyone. And that's really where I come from on that particular side of things. So, well, I'm just trying to turn it off here so I can get back to it and show. So the voices you heard there are the voices that I have chosen to be our voice on the air. They talk things back and forth. They operate off of a script that we put together, and it allows us to be succinct in what we're doing. Uh, the time that people have been with me doing the process has been anywhere from well, 24 months to 3 years. But some of the ones that have been around 3 years is just they enjoy what they're doing and they come to assist, and it's really been a port in the storm for them. So they continue on being, well, they're part of the Private Members Association and growing with it. But what I'm aiming for now is in the shortest period of time will be 12 months because there's certain time frames that people have to do things. And if they're quite savvy in what they learn, to about 18 months. So somebody's looking at a year and a half to 2 years to put the process together. And everybody goes, oh my God, I'm getting old. I'm not going to be able to do this. And well, the thing is that the people that have been doing this that are my seniors, and we've had 44 people in our group working. There's 13 that have now progressed on to the advanced level out of the 44. Um, my average age was 67 years of age in the study group. 67 years of age. My eldest is 80 and my youngest is 33. But most of them are 55 to 75. And that's quite intriguing because the energy they have and the activity they have, they found a new life. They found a new purpose for being. And quite honestly, something that most people don't even have a knowledge of is that you are the creditors, you are not the debtors. And the whole world is sitting in a position of debt. And so we at the advanced levels now, which is a whole other subject because of the way the banking system is and so on, in transition, but we're sitting discussing things with private bankers at this particular point of how much we can lend the bank, not the bank lend us, because we are the creditors. We are the ones that can access those trust funds that they borrow on through the Security Exchange Commission. We are the ones that are the impetus behind the bonds that are issued that run the country. And the country is in a fiat money system, and a fiat money system means fugazi. So if you don't speak Italian, it's BS. The money system is completely made out of air. There is no money. We're in the process of moving over to a precious metals area that we were back in 1933 and again in 1971 when they took it away with Nixon. And we're going back to a gold-based currency with gold, silver, platinum, and all the other precious metals gaining great value very quickly. Our banking system is moving off the SWIFT money system, which has been the usury of your money for years, um, decades, and moving on to the quantum financial system, which will be self-governed by you. The majority of people will still be in need of governance and leadership. We would rather give them leadership than governance, and the leadership is by teaching them what they've not been taught all through the years. So when I looked at the POGG system, I went through the POGG system and we took the time to do that. I did send you a letter, Christy, and I don't know who you sent that out to, but I hope the people that are on the call has seen that letter.
Um, we haven't shared that yet because we've been focusing just on this. So I apologize for that. I should have sent it before the call. But just
Well,
because,
there's a little bit yeah, there's a little bit to read in on that. Yeah. What did we lose, Peggy?
oh, she has problems with
Internet?
her
Okay.
computer. She'll probably be coming back in. She goes in and out.
Well, it's recorded anyhow, so you can give her the
Yeah, yeah,
recording.
yeah.
All right, but the first thing I'd like to do tonight is focus on the POG, and I agree with the POG because I agree with the fact that the powers that be have to be called to the front and answer for themselves. So Sheila, it's just great work that you're doing. The difficulty is that people that are citizens and people that are putting themselves forward don't have status and standing, and they have not put the declarations down properly, and that's what FOC group does. And all of our members have taken themselves up to the level of private trust and self-governance, and some have gone on further onto the financial side and developing the PMAs. But the ones that haven't gone that far, they will come in time, but there's no rule that somebody has to. We're just saying that the things that we want to do with the financing that we have, we want to do benevolently. So there are people that are in need of housing and transportation and food and so on. So we start the first private members association as an educational being, and we all have bank accounts and we all have processes that we can go through, but they're not our names on it. We are just the executors and signing officers. So it's a process that everybody goes through that you don't actually lose benefits, you gain benefits, and there's no liability. When people are going with the POG system, as you can see, the fear that comes in people's area, they go to functions and they hear things going on and they get excited about it. And then you ask them to do something, as you well know, Sheila, you ask them to do something and nobody's there. You're holding the bag by yourself, and it's your belief system that takes it. And nothing's more fulfilling than others standing beside you and saying, yes, we've done this, we're doing this, and we're talking about this. So these people that are in municipal politics, first of all, municipal politics to me are just graduated class presidents that happen to win the popularity contest on their vote. So I mean, municipal politics to me has never been an area of interest, other than the fact that you can see now, as you say, through the UN agenda, it's coming through and pushing it down so that they can get their tentacles in there. And it's the end of the tentacles that grab onto things. It's not the octopus. The octopus just eats it, but it's the tentacles that grab it, right? So we have to um, put an education that's there. So these powers that be, that there are the signs that they're being undermined, and it's the general population, once they get an education and a knowledge, that they'll stand behind, and they may not be out there in the front. I often think of various things like the movie 300, the 300 soldiers that were there with the shields, and they were prepared to defend the country by holding up the shields together. But 300 held off the whole Eurasia invasion type of thing until such time as they had to give it up. And it's not that I don't carry a shield and a sword. I have a very big sword, but my sword right now is a blue pen. I sign in blue ink. I don't sign in black ink. There's things that I do that are altered in my life that I didn't know before. And I also seal important documents with a postage stamp paying the tariff, as well as thumbprinting it as my seal. And everyone within our group, by the way, are also globally registered postmasters. And we're postmasters because it gives us jurisdiction over the courts. A postmaster has higher jurisdiction than a judge. A judge doesn't like to admit that, but it's in the law books. And the thing was, is we were all playing chess, but they only gave us a checkers rule book. So we were getting hammered all the time because we were trying to play chess, but we only knew how to play checkers. So we've opened up that, and not only do we play chess now, we're on the, like it or not, the Trump level of fifth dimensional chess. Everything that is being done south of the border, like him or not like him, I personally admire the way that he's done things because he's not going to be there very much longer. He's going to leave because he's done his job. He's stirred the pot, he's got things rolling, he's exposed the ones that are there. And basically we've kind of done the same thing, and we keep a number of steps ahead. I have one more little presentation here that I want to give you. It's about 6 minutes long, 5 minutes long, and it's just on the reason for transition. And the reason for transition that we're making um, in an agreement, again, with you, Sheila, that we need to do these transitions, but we need to have the status and standing as the men and women of Canada. You see, we live in a Judeo Christian society, and the Judeo Christian society puts God at the top of that, obviously. But we sit at the right hand of God because we were made in his image. And we don't have to live under the laws that man made. We live under the laws that God made. And all laws that man made are spin-offs out of God's law. So if there is no victim, there is no crime. And we're not saying that you can walk around and do harm to other men and women, but living in a Judeo-Christian society, and not talking from a religious point of view, but from a spiritual point of view, is that there are common laws and laws of nature we have to follow, and that's what we follow. If there is no victim, I have no interest. If there is no victim, I have no interest. So I've been to court. I've CRA has taken me to court, and I'm still on this side of the pipes. I'm not behind the pipes. I still have my house. I still have my cars. I still, do whatever it does. And the tax situation is quite different in my life in that they called me to court because they said that I had failed to respond to a notice to file. And they were absolutely right. And I was found guilty on that, and it cost me, excuse me one moment, I just have to give someone a message here. Uh, Come on, can't talk right now. Um, in that I have earnings and I have income. And earnings are the things that I do with my time and my sweat and tears. And my income is what's made off of any investments. Taxes are owed if there's income. Taxes are not owned if you did the work. God gave you the ability to lift the shovel and dig the hole. That doesn't mean the government get a piece of it because you went to work. Who said? So if people knew how to read the Income Tax Act, they could see under Section 5, subsection 3, that it said if you don't work for the government, you don't have to pay tax. People don't know that. Your accountant doesn't do that. I wouldn't pay an accountant to do my taxes. Why? Because if they knew what they were doing, there would be no need to file the tax. So they're just part of the system. And they work under a license. A license is permission for somebody to do something from an authoritative body illegally. So if you operate as a license, I'm a doctor of natural medicine and a doctor of humanitarian services, and I've worked under a private members association for years. They don't have the jurisdiction to sit over top of me. I have the right to speak to my fellow man or woman should they request it, but we have to be in a private agreement for that. And that's what a private members association does. So there's avenues that we said, oh, I didn't know about that. But oh, is there a way of doing that? Yes. But let me just pull this one up for, okay, my share screen is here. And I need to have sound on screen 2. And this one is for Sheila. I'll get over here and start my slideshow.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're digging into a really interesting source. It's called From Protest to Private.
Yeah, it bills itself as an introductory overview.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And sort of sets out this mission exploring this idea that maybe something inside you knew the system wasn't serving truth.
It's quite a hook. It's all about this split, this distinction the source makes between a public system and a private remedy.
Okay, so let's start there. The source talks about the public trap. And a key point it makes is your all cap ES name is treated as an asset. What does that mean, according to this source?
Right. Well, the way it's presented is that your name, specifically in all caps, is viewed by the public system as a kind of separate legal entity, almost like a corporation or a registration.
Like a legal stand-in?
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
The source calls this a public illusion. It suggests there's a disconnect between you, the living person, and this all cap yes name persona.
Okay.
And recognizing that difference, that separation, is apparently crucial, according to this material.
So if that's the trap, then what about the remedy? The source says real remedy begins when you step out of assumption into something called status and standing. What are they getting at there? What does that mean practically?
Well, status and standing in this context seems to refer to your actual legitimate position and authority within any given system or situation.
Your inherent position.
Exactly. Instead of just going along with how things seem, the source says you need to consciously define and assert your true position. Know your role, basically. Are you the one setting the terms or just playing along?
Okay, interesting. And this leads to what it calls Trust Structure 101.
Right.
Saying everything rests on this structure, grantor, trustee, beneficiary. Can you unpack that a bit? Why is that so fundamental here?
Yeah, this is central to the source's argument. It suggests this three-part trust structure. Grantor puts something in, trustee manages it. Beneficiary benefits is like the hidden operating system behind many public interactions.
Even ones we don't think of as trusts.
That's the implication. Understanding these roles, who in any given interaction, is presented as absolutely key to seeing how things really work beneath the surface.
Now here's a statement that really jumps out. The reason for transition. The source claims the public system was never designed to serve the living man or woman. That sounds pretty radical.
It is a strong statement. The distinction it draws is between the flesh and blood individual and the legal entity, that all sapiens name we talked about.
Okay.
The argument is that the public system is primarily set up to interact with that legal entity, not the actual person directly.
So it acknowledges things like the POGG model calling out perceived fraud.
Right. It says that has value, pointing out issues, but this source emphasizes moving from confrontation to comprehension, meaning it's less about fighting the existing system directly and more about understanding its mechanics, its underlying structure, and then choosing how you want to engage, perhaps on a different private basis, understanding first, then acting.
Right. So if someone's listening and thinking, okay, this resonates, how does this source suggest they begin this private walk?
The advice is pretty clear and honestly quite cautious. It says, start with learning. Big emphasis on that.
Learn first.
Yes. Don't rush into notices or affidavits. The message is really educate yourself thoroughly. understand the concepts before trying to apply them, build the foundation.
And it mentions resources like an EvoC 2.0 study group offering things like learning modules, study calls, templates.
Exactly. It points towards tools for self-education, really doubling down on that comprehension aspect we mentioned. It's about empowering you with knowledge, not just giving you steps to follow blindly.
Okay, so wrapping up this deep dive into from protest to private,
Hmm.
we've looked at this idea of a public versus private approach, the importance the source places on status and standing, and this foundational concept of trust structures.
Yeah, it really is a framework for rethinking how you interact with established systems. It prompts a shift in perspective.
So maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to mull over based on all this.
Given this framework presented in the source, what might it actually mean for you to proactively define your own status and standing? And how could really understanding these underlying structures, like trusts, potentially change how you approach information systems, maybe even your daily interactions? Something to think about.
Wonderful. So again, as you can see, it led into, and the POGG is in the center of it. It's all part of what we have to do, but we need to do the setup before we can do the final. I think that's where you get hitting the wall because you go in and talking to them as a citizen. And I explain it to the group when we get together. It's like being in medieval England. You know, the farmers um, the farmers and the tillers and the vegetables and the beef and everything else, they're outside the wall of the castle. And the king decides he's going to have a feast. He comes out and he sends his soldiers out and they grab the sheep and they grab the pigs and they grab all the vegetables and they're going to have this great big feast because somebody's coming in from outside of town. And all the people are upset because they're starving outside the gates. They're the serfs and they're in servitude. They're in servitude to the king, and they go up to the front gates of the castle and start pounding on the gates and say, "This isn't right. That's our food. You shouldn't be doing this. You got to listen to us." And they said they don't even say thank you very much, but they close the gate door and say, "Have a great day, and you're not invited to the feast." And that's exactly the way these little pompous mayors act all around this country right now. Is they are. I didn't like them when they were in high school. I don't like them when they're in politics now, and if I was ever to sit and talk across from one of them, I'd have difficulty even sitting in the same room with them because nothing truthful comes out of their mouth. It's all, and if you look at actually what the job description is for a mayor in most of these small cities, even in the large cities such as the GTA, their mandate is to keep the streets clear of garbage, make sure the snow is cleared so no one is injured and there's no liability to the city, and to go and cut ribbons when a new business opens and thank you for you being on the tax roll. And what do you see your mayor doing anything other than that? They go out and they shake the hands and kiss the babies and cut ribbons, and they do nothing else because, as you pointed out, Sheila, the chief administrative officer is the one that calls the shots in the town. They're the ones that are making the big bucks. They're the ones that the mayor has to go to with any idea, and they just are the figurehead that sits there with a chain around their neck. And what other wonderful symbol to have around your neck than a chain of office? Like come on. So the the path that we go on is very intense. Is not for the faint of heart. Is not for those that are just going to join the card club. They come on board and they leave it relatively soon because we ask people to commit now. So what we're doing on the website, just to show you, we're going into a tiered system. And in that tiered system, we'll be joining the PMA and having access to the blogs and the newsletters and so on, being kept up what's going on, and it helps to keep the lights on. And as you know, there's expenses you have to go through that nobody very often digs their hand into the pocket for. The next level up is like 24.95, and they're part of the PMA action group. That is giving them access to that, but it also gives them access to our library. Now, nothing that we do on our website is not available to you right now to the general public. The difficulty with it is people go out and read it and they haven't got a clue of what it says. And so the biggest thing that we do is we dissect the knowledge and bring it into real English. And this is one of the things that I learned to do in my earlier life, is when I sit down and read a book, the words may be strange and fanciful, but I know how to translate them into English. And that's a very, very important uh, aspect of how you present. Now, we have a whole library of probably, well, it's about 350 books in depth from various areas. But one of the biggest things that I'm very proud of is I've Canadianized everything. Most of the things that you see out there, and most of the people that will talk about this, will talk about what they read out of US based books. Why? Because it's population. It's population. The higher the population, the more garbage they put out. And you have to sift it and sort it and sift it and sort it. And there's a lot of people, excuse me, turned off by AI right now. I'm excited about AI. Without AI, it would make my job unbelievably difficult. But I'm able to feed that information in now, and I, as the human involved with it, are able to direct it and orchestrate it. I don't manipulate the information. I orchestrate the information on how it comes out to people so that they feel comfortable with what it is. But when you're initially starting with people, and everybody's talking about a birth certificate being monetized and a certificate of live birth being a bond and a driver's license being monetized and a speeding ticket. Oh, I just love it when somebody comes to me and says, "Well, I just got this $150 speeding ticket, and I got to beat him." And da, da, da. Says, guys, how many times have you sped and not got caught? Number one. And number two, if you were sitting in the position of postmaster and you were traveling across the country rather than driving across the country, and you weren't operating a vehicle, you weren't driving, you were traveling, and there's all the different words you can do. I'm not proud to say, but I have been stopped. I do a lot of miles, so I've been stopped 3 times in the last year and a half, and I've yet to receive a moving violation. And I was speeding. But there were some things that I had to discuss with him at the side of the road. And the fact that I wasn't traveling in commerce, I was traveling in the private. He had no jurisdiction over me. I was using the roadway as is given the rights to me to do. And the time for negotiation was at the side of the road. If I wasn't able to tell that police officer who has the right of discretion, it's up to him whether he gives you the ticket or not, or her. And if you can't plead your case there, just pay the ticket. My time's worth more than $150 to go and sit for 5 hours in court to have them do stupid things and add victim things to it and everything else. It's just crazy. But what I do have a comprehension of, should I get a ticket, is I will be putting affidavits in of having them produce the victim, show me where the victim is. I may have been traveling, but I wasn't in commerce. I wasn't driving a commercial vehicle. I wasn't making any money from it that was part of the area that they felt was income. And I want to know where the rest of the bond money goes that they put against that ticket that they issued, because that's the only thing that's interested in that court. When they put that piece of paper in your hand and there's a number on it and it goes into that box, that number is recorded and they start charging against it right away. A moving violation ticket in the province of Ontario starts at $1 million. That's how much they charge against your bond account. $1 million. And it goes up from there. Who do you think pays for the court cases when people go to court? You know, it's that case number that they put a bond against. Well, whether you're there for 5 minutes or you're there on 16 appearances, or poor Jonathan there on 19 appearances over 4 years. Well, how much did that cost his trust account? They just kept charging it and charging it and charging it. But if he was sitting in the position where he was holding his own and he was in the private, he could ask for a forensic accounting of where those monies went. And guess what? The judge and the crown attorney, they're on the hot seat. They've got to explain where that money goes. They have to account for that. If you don't account for it, and then you ask for the balance back, saying, okay, you charged $8 million for this case to happen over 4 years and 19 appearances. There's probably $5 or $6 million that was charged against his trust account. So give me an accounting of that, and I want the balance back because that's from my trust, not your trust, from my trust. Because I have made the declaration that I've moved to decedent from non-decedent. I've moved from them believing that I'm abandoned to the fact that I'm declaring that I'm alive, and I have been alive since my 18th birthday, and they've been using my name illegally for that length of time and treating me as the trustee, and the record was wrong.
Can I just ask
Yeah,
who you informed or who you sent that declaration to? Who did you contact to let them know to correct your status?
17 different federal departments and provincial, 17
So,
in total.
like, for instance,
We
I
start,
have I have a number of questions. I wouldn't mind just kind of
yeah,
emailing
yeah, yeah.
them and
Well,
then having them kind of. So
well, I'd rather answer them on the tape here because I mean it helps more people. Okay,
yeah, okay.
so um, but as far as the responsibility is only to notify the governor general. And notice the one is notice to all. She's the top of the pile, and if you notify her by law, everyone else is supposed to be informed by her office. We send them 3 notices. They say, well, yeah, but you only send them 1 notice. Well, no, they never read the 1 notice. They never read the second notice. And if they read the third notice, they found that they're in default and have gone out of honor. So as a result, estoppel has happened, and now they don't have any choice. So
Yeah.
we send it to the governor general. We send it to the finance minister. It's interesting that the president of the treasury is the only one that sends things back, and they send it back and say we're the president of the treasury, but we don't have a mandate to deal with you.
The at the like the
The
okay.
president of the treasury in Ottawa,
You
the
know,
one
what
that
about
has
at
all
the
the money.
province, at the provincial level, or at that
Oh no,
administration?
that's the finance minister. I'm talking about the Treasury in Canada that borrows all the money that when Christine Freeland goes to the Security Exchange Commission and gets a $4 billion bond issued that is scrutinized by a law firm in Ottawa, which acts as there's a whole thing of putting together unincorporated associations, which are your advisors. And she goes to a law firm on downtown Ottawa and says, this is what we're putting into the Security Exchange Commission, and these are all the reasons we're going to do it. And some lawyer down there rubber stamps it, writes his name on it, and says, yeah, that looks good to me. She puts it back into the money market. Boom. 3 weeks later, Canada has $4 billion in the bank.
Yeah, it's a big money laundering system for sure.
Well, no, it's a money printing system because
Yeah.
Ecosystem.
they're
Yeah.
they're doing it out on the money market. Well, we've done it in reverse. We're in the position we are putting promissory notes out there and putting them into special deposit accounts because people don't even realize that if they put their money into a bank account, as soon as they pass it across to that teller, they've lost control of that money. And there's case law and courts that have ruled that the bank owns the money as soon as you put it across to the teller.
So
We
your
have gone
members
in and
have a special deposit account, like a co-op type trust accounts?
well, not a co-op trust account. We don't go into the trust accounts because there's there's 150 different statutory trusts. There's one type of private trust. And the private trust, you are the only beneficiary and you're the principal trustee and you hold the office of the executor. That puts you at the right hand of God. In other words, you're saying to God, I'm alive, I'm keeping your rules. If I break your rules, I'll pay. When it comes to the statutory trust, this is why I wanted Peggy to be on this, because if you go to the officer of the, oh, who's she going to?
I'm a
PG and
guardian. Yeah,
The guardian,
yeah.
okay? If you read what the duties of the guardian is, it is not to do what they're wanting them to do. The
Right.
guardian is to decide whether or not you're sane or not. And you think they're going to tell you you're sane if you're going in and saying, I've just sued you for X number of dollars and I want you to pay all my bills? They're going, no, 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 no. Okay. But we go through a process as well as when we actually lien our account. And we have you hear people talk about the Universal Commercial Code, the UCC. Well, the Universal Commercial Code is an American code. It's operated around the world and it's a rule book for doing commerce. But Canada is a country upon its own. And Canada is ruled by the Bank Act of Canada and the Bills of Exchange Act. I wrote a 357-page book on rebuttals of anybody that returns anything back that I send to them. Whatever their question is, I can go into this book that we've produced and find the rebuttal that not only gives them the Bank of Canada Act ruling, but also the Bills of Exchange Act direction and three case laws from across the country where the courts have ruled that we are right under the Bills of Exchange Act. Most people don't know this, and that's why these people walk around in control of everything you do. Your mortgage has been paid for, and you continue to agree to pay for it. You're in real estate, Christy, and you get people mortgages. Well, go and take a piece of mortgage paper and take a look at the second last page and take a look at the last page. On the second last page, the name is in all capitals. And you are there and you're giving a autograph, a signature actually, because I don't sign anything anymore. I autograph everything. I even autograph passports. I autograph driver's license. I never sign anything anymore because if you're in script, if you look in the law books, if you do it in script and you can look under Black's Law, you're dealing with the devil. And it says it right in the book.
What's the difference between an autograph and a signature? Sorry.
Yeah.
When you're doing script, you're dealing with the devil. You are a cognizant entity. When you're
Oh,
doing an
so like
autograph,
cursive. Cursive, you mean versus
person,
printed?
person. Yep,
Oh, okay.
yep. Okay.
So you
Like
printed,
if
you hand printed rather than cursive
we
write
hand
yourself.
printed and I do it just as fast as my signature, and I put the proper punctuation in rather than in the legal world they say per on behalf of the lawyer or whatever. So the secretary will sign per and then their name. We do it in a different way of syntaxing that is approved by the law system and recognized by it. So there's ways that we do things and how we declare ourselves as well. So it's a learning process. There's no doubt about it. But Canada is run under the Bill of Exchange Act and the Bank Act, and we do private property security liens. And my private property security liens is in the billions of dollars. And if they want to challenge me on that, I'll say, fine, we'll collapse this trust, and I'm calling for a forensic audit on how much you think I'm worth. So in the billions that I've suggested to that I'm worth, if they only come back with a fraction of that, I still have enough to lead the rest of my life. Sheila, you have some questions.
Um, so you basically with CRA, you're saying you're non-citizen or non-resident too for the tax filing and not reporting your income per se. You have earnings that are outside of that system.
Well, no, I'm not a resident for sure. I have a living address. I don't have a residence.
Okay.
Anytime a form asks me to put down my resident address, I scratch it out and put my living address because I'm living on the land. I don't, I'm living on the land. I don't live in Canada. I live on Canada. So therefore, I make those corrections. And there's things that you become habitual in doing that you change and alter. As far as the tax area goes, if there is any income is taxes to be paid on it because of usury. So if you have an investment of $100 and you make 25% interest on that and you get $125 at the end of the year, they'll hit you with up to 63% of a tax because you got the money for nothing, so they're going to take more of it. And that's how
Right,
the government
right.
takes
And
their
what do you
money.
and what is this doing for like the property taxes and the bills that are coming like hydros and waters and the things that we got to get addressed and now? How do your members handle those in the all
Well,
cap?
again, it depends on where they are in the process, and I would suggest somebody is not a get-rich-quick scheme, but in the process, as part of the private trust, The trustee is looked after because they are looking after the entity. We take ownership of our all caps name. We actually have an Ontario business number for our all caps name. We have a federal business number for our all caps name, and those two are attached to the social insurance number. So we have that entity that's operating. That operating entity has given a power of attorney over to the trustees, which is our private trust. Our private trust then handles all administrative activities. And if anyone, and we make declaration of the all caps name as being deceased, okay? But I, as a living man, I have risen and I
You're the
notify the
executor,
government.
but then there's trustees as well, or
Oh, I am the principal trustee
yeah,
and I hold the office of the executor, which I don't enact unless they force the issue. I only operate as the trustee. I have two co-trustees that are volunteer positions, and those volunteer positions are sitting in the case that what's called an indenture. We produce an indenture, which is an agreement. That indenture is a standard operating procedure, and there's a deed of trust and a will that is produced. And upon my demise, my co-trustees step in immediately and take over the operation of the business that was formed, which is my all caps name.
yeah.
So the trust owns the all caps name. So the trust carries on an infinitum. So my children are looked after. There's no probate courts. We are not statutory. We're in the private, and we don't deal with the courts at all.
And your property, your house is registered how in the
Under
trust?
under the well, you have to get the land's patent. Okay, you have to get the
Okay.
land patent, and you get the Ontario Landowners Association. You get the alloidal title, and
Okay,
then
is
you
this
do what?
included in the year and a half that the
Yeah,
2 year
yeah,
process of so
yeah.
they're getting their title, the alloidal system, they're getting a business number and registering sort of the
Everything is just categorically done, and we just go through the steps.
okay. So this I would describe as we're almost in a trinity now, is that POG kind of addresses that that public trust that's been captured. Peggy is addressing kind of a spiritual, we're just walking away from it, and you're addressing no controlling it or claiming it and controlling it. So kind of thing. Is that how I'm seeing how they fit or
Well, it is the trust is in a triangle, as the world is in a triangle,
yeah.
and and the entity that sits up here is called the grantor, and
Yeah.
the
Oh, yeah,
grantor.
I know that. I'm just saying that
Well,
that
but
yours in
that's where the
comparison
top
to Peggy's, she's
position
more of a
is.
walking away from the account or from the security, and you're more of a claiming or controlling it in a private.
There was no way I would give my security away. Why would you give them the only thing that you have value in, which what your parents were lied to? And
Yeah.
it all stems back to that is the parents were lied to. They weren't told that they were giving away. That's why they're called wards of the state.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
why
Yeah.
they have Children's Aid Society,
Are
which
you
is a private
issuing
company.
Yeah, are you issuing your own identification or passports or
No.
licenses? No. So you're then people you're will have to deal with confrontational stuff at the road or deal with tickets after the fact.
No. It's just how one approaches them. First of all, one should follow the rules of the road out of safety. If
Okay,
someone
but
is
say
driving in, if someone's driving in commerce, if
yeah,
someone is renting a car, they have to have a commercial license.
yeah,
Why? Because they're going into a commercial contract with a company, and they have to act in
yeah.
commerce.
I understand that. Yeah, yeah.
But most people don't. Okay, but when I'm traveling in the private and I'm a postmaster going from point A to point B, and the reason I say postmaster is it has hierarchy over all areas because it controls all tariffs.
Are you showing Postmaster General papers then? Or like
Yeah,
oh, okay. Is that
I
part
have a
of the
doc.
year and a half, 2 year process as well?
It's to do the process of becoming a private trust is not necessary to be, but all of our members, like we don't enforce it, but all of our members are postmasters. They start there when they're
Okay.
getting all their papers together and so on. one of the things they do is they go to the postmaster and we get it out of the States because the States runs all the post office of North America. People don't even realize that. The postmaster started in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Yeah,
And
by Ben
so
Franklin or something, right? Or
by Benjamin
yeah,
Franklin, and
yeah,
well, it was all part of his. He was a triple agent. He
yeah.
worked for France, for the United States, and for England.
Yeah, no,
So
I
you know,
follow Russell Gould and yeah, and
well,
David Wynn and all
It's
that
Russell
stuff.
J.
And I
Gould.
understand it's just it's very complicated. It's very time consuming. So this is where I'm trying to pare it down on how we can capture it as far as not
Well,
so
I
yeah.
guess what the question is when you say it's complicated, and I think our life has been
Oh
complicated,
yeah,
and most
yeah,
people live under a rock,
yeah,
and so they become part of
yeah,
the matrix, so it makes it easy for them.
yeah, yeah.
What I'm not looking for everybody to be part, as I said to Christy when I first met her, I am not recruiting. I am offering a place for people to go.
Absolutely. And this is kind of what we need is people that know this foundational stuff to come forward with it and piece it because this, this is the education that they're needing, right?
Well, I'm very good friends with a number of other providers, Sovereign by Design and Legal
Oh,
iBoss,
with
and
Angela, you work with Angela?
oh yeah, Angela's asked me to be on her staff,
Okay,
and
well, she
I
knows me. We worked
yeah.
together previously, but she was getting me into the registering of, I'm actually registered as Sheila and Associates with and that sort of stuff, but she was getting into this education piece and I was getting into no, we need to, so yeah, I know this fits. So yeah, for sure. Okay. And she, yeah, okay. Perfect.
See, the biggest thing is the non-controversial, and
Yeah,
there's nothing wrong with the spiritual, but the spiritual, uh,
I
the
agree.
meek
I
shall in,
agree.
the meek shall inherit the earth, but they're going to get hurt on the way.
I
You know,
agree. We need a controlled, like herd the sheep here, and then sort of like get them away from that entrance that's going towards the slaughterhouse, and then kind of. But yeah, I hear you. Is that? But you can't go right to it. As I'm a child of God, and I know that. So yeah.
So would you say estate redemption is kind of that path? Because you're pushing back and saying, I don't want to be the trustee. I want the trustee to remain. I'm just going to send all my bills to the trustee and I'm opting out, right? So that's
well,
basically
the thing
how
is
I see estate redemption.
once you
Well,
become
this way they're redeeming it by saying, hey, whatever to the Governor General, and then they're reforming it like that chart in the POGG legalese version, those two circles. They're redeeming it, and then without the mayor or whatever at the SIN number, and then reforming it in a private setup is kind of um,
can you see my screen here now?
Yep.
and then you're supposed to be living off the interest of that private estate in an LLC, real man trust.
Well, there is no interest, because if you're getting interest, it means you're part of the usury system. Because if you're getting interest, that means somebody else had to do the work for you to get interest. So there is so much money available.
Right,
It's you would never ever ever be able to spend the money that has been used on your name. If you
right.
were able to get the benefits that came from your name, you'd be able to have every housing project going, every hospital built, every person driving a car that isn't held together with baling wire.
Yeah.
It's just this is why I apologize, but don't apologize for standing up at the meeting the other night when saying, well, if I was like Nancy Pelosi and I got 50% interest, excuse me, if you're like Nancy Pelosi, you should be in Guantanamo Bay. But the thing is that, everybody needs to be there and be in the process of having what needs to be there. Can you see my estate redemption chart?
I can. Yes, thank you.
Yes.
So I'll send this out to you if you want. But
Yeah, that would be great
again,
because I'd like Peggy to see this too.
Yeah, I
well,
don't know
she'll
what
see it
happened.
on the recording. But these are handouts that I do for people because when they're going down the path, you have to look at where it is. And there's nothing wrong with what Peggy's doing other than the fact that it's going to get her nowhere. She's going to put all this work in. I don't know why my hand's up because I didn't even remember putting that. But
Yeah,
anyways,
I thought I put it down for you, but
oh, I
yeah,
don't know. Maybe there's something on my keyboard to keep pushing.
yeah.
Um, I'm usually from the presenter side, not from the come on board side. But when you look at what's there on the estate redemption, it's spiritual, it's God loving, it's wonderful. But you have to go through the process that the system that you're trying to live in. So I tell people I live in the private and I operate in the public. And I live in the private by being a God loving man. I operate in the public by putting all of these papers in and show them that I know who I am and I have the ability to be the beneficiary and the ability to be the principal trustee of my trust, and that they are the trustees. The judge is a trustee. If I had been Jonathan going into court, I would have been standing there and saying, "I'm the executor of the John Donald Sargent estate, and I'm here on special appearance. If you wish me to speak, I'll speak. If not, I will leave the court." And they are obviously going to be intrigued, so they're going to ask me to speak. And the next thing I would say to them is, "Thank you, Your Honor. We're going to move forward, and I need to notify you that you are the trustee in charge here today of this estate, and we're here to find out where we can equitably settle this situation." Done, done. It would have been done in 10 minutes, right?
Hmm.
Because they're going to stand up and say, "I'm not going to be the trustee in this matter." Well, then we don't have a matter, do we? Because if you're sitting there on the bench and you got to look at what that judge did. That judge was very right in what she said. First of all, Jonathan didn't have status or standing, and I'm not pulling down Jonathan, I'm just pointing out some points. He didn't have the status and standing to be in front of her talking about the Charter of Rights, because you don't have a Charter of Rights if you're in servitude to the government. If you were a citizen, you don't have a charter. All right. Then he said that I have to protect myself, and she said, "Excuse me," in her ruling, "it's my duty to look after every person in
There's-
this courtroom, the lawyer, the people that are sitting out in the audience, and you, sir, as a citizen and a person, it's my right to look after you. So, no, I am going to sit here and I am going to carry on with this." At no time, he said he was a child of God, that he went under God's law. Well, that's very nice, but he hadn't declared it to anybody else, right?
So
And you
had
can't
he
do it very,
been done this process and had the standing of a man,
she
living
had no
in under
jurisdiction.
God, then she wouldn't have had jurisdiction. So what would have happened in the court? Would she just dismiss it? Like how would it, or how does
Well,
it through court?
technically, from what I understand, it basically was dismissed after lunch because he agreed to restitution, right?
Exactly.
So if he was in my group, if he was in my group and he agreed to restitution, I had one today that they're coming to take her house, and it was TD Bank because she didn't bother to go to small claims court because she was scared and she didn't have enough knowledge and she was embarrassed to call me, and it didn't have to go that far. But she didn't go to small claims court because it was under $35,000. They got a judgment, and now she's received the paper that she has to pay the $25,000, or they're going to foreclose on her house. They're going to come in with the sheriff and take her house, and she'll get whatever they don't get from the 25,000. They don't care if they sell it for $25,000. That's all they want is the 25,000. So what did I do for her today was I produced her promissory note, her promise to pay. It's a bill of exchange, and I sent that as settling and writing off and discharging the debt to the TD Bank. If they do not accept her promissory note because it's only built on her autograph, if they don't accept that, then they are in dishonor and they're in breach of the Bills of Exchange Act under sections so and so, and they can be taken to court for failing to accept a monetary instrument. But we learn their rules. They just go on presumption. The banks are the worst because everything's on presumption. Everything's on presumption. I mean, they won't take a bill of exchange from us because they say, "Oh, we don't do that." Well, they don't do that at at the retail level because they're not taught how to do that. But we go to the private banking level, which is the ultra high net worth client, and those guys know how to do it because they deal with bills of exchange every single freaking day. All right. I was going to tell you about your mortgage paper. On the second last page, it's in the all caps name that you sign off on the fact that they can charge against your name. So as soon as you put your signature there, actually, as soon as you apply for a loan, they already
I just,
monetize that because they lend you back your own money.
yeah, Perry was a mortgage broker.
Well, you
FYI.
know it. Well, I'm sorry to hear that, Barry, but when you
Yeah,
learned is that when you left it. But again, on
yeah,
the back
yep.
page, on the back page, what do? They get you to sign a promissory note that you pay your own money back. So they get paid twice. They get paid once
Yeah.
by
First, they
the
take your money
asset
and then you pay
deposit.
it back. Yeah.
Well, they lend you your own money because they do double entry bookkeeping, right? And the double entry bookkeeping puts it right into the system. But looking over at Peggy's method here, I put it on a simple chart. Nothing wrong with what she's doing, except when you get down to the bottom, the result, you have a personal spiritual sovereignty and insight. That's all you've got. On the other side, where you've done all the other documentations and you live in the private and operate in the public, the executor authority, trust-based control, legal remedy, and asset access.
So
Or
meaning
over on the
you
other
actually
side,
have access to your trust account, like the
yes,
funds
we're writing promissory notes right now.
against that. Okay.
They're in the hands of the Toronto Dominion Bank, where we've written them a sizable promissory note and told them to go ahead and monetize it. And
And
then they put
has
that.
anybody actually, have you actually seen that money come to you or to someone?
There are people, a friend of mine in British Columbia has brought property under this method. The Ontario um, Toronto Dominion Bank have been stonewalling because they're the head office for across Canada. But we don't deal at the branch level anymore. We deal with legal and compliance down at 77 King Street. And they all go to the last day of each of their notifications. So, they got 20 days, they got 10 days, so boom, boom, boom. So our next move, and I'll be quite honest and frank with you, is I haven't done it uh, because I believe my presentation to the group tomorrow night actually is on the transition to the quantum financial system and the monetary changeover because it's imminent. It's
And you
imminent.
think that's happening, yeah, imminently.
It has happened already.
Yeah,
It's
I heard
already
that as
into
well. We are out of the SWIFT system. But
yeah. Well, the SWIFT system has been stealing from us since 1933, actually before that, 1878. But it's all Rockefeller and everything else. But the people had to get into place. I mean, Israel had to be put in place. Iran had to be put in place. I don't think that the war is going to stop with Zelensky. I think Zelensky's too stupid. I think he's just going to cause things to happen there. But anyways,
are you, can I just ask, do you believe in the military law? Like the law of war manual is going on in continuity of government and white hats and all that? Like, is that seem feasible to you?
well,
Because that was,
part
because
of that,
QFS is part of that as well, right?
yeah, it's all being the globe is being run by the military, not being run by the politicians. It's the military are stepping in and taking over.
Under the
Um,
military, like the law of war manual, right? 11.3.
well, one of our readings is the art of war. I mean,
Yeah.
that's if you know the art of war, you just know to
Yeah.
keep your shield up and lay your sword down, right? So, I mean, all of these things are all part of it. You can see how it just gets larger, but
Yeah.
it's a big nut for people to look at, and so we break it down in smaller chunks that they can chew on. And if you are going to have a presentation in Huntsville, I already have three of our members that said they'd like to join me and meet with the people and tell them of what their life is, not just from me. Okay. And I am an educator. I'm the leader of the group, but I'm only there because I've been doing it the longest. There's some of them in this group that are doing their best to shoot past me, and I'm welcoming them to do it. Just don't do it in haste to say that you're the leader, because you don't need to feed that beast. What you need to do is have the knowledge and make sure that it's right. So everything I put out is vetted. Everything I back up with case law. Everything that I put to people, I can back up with words and laws.
So just to go back, because, obviously our group, we've been through the POG, and then obviously this past meeting, we went through estate redemption. So because obviously we don't want to, over too much information, right? People just
I
tune in,
think they're
right?
confused. I actually think they're confused right now.
Well, I
Well,
think
I
that's true.
agree. There probably are, right? But
Right.
that's why I don't want to confuse them more by saying, okay, well, so would you say, like what Sheila was saying, that triangle, right? Because I sort of understood that as well, that, POG is public, estate redemption is more spiritual, and giving back the trustee and sending your bills to the trustee, just sort of stepping away, and your approach is more controlling,
The,
taking
the
that.
trustee, the trustee is in statutory law. The trustee looks
Yeah.
after government. The
Yeah.
trustee does not look after the people. The only one that can look after the people is you. And if someone goes on the estate redemption, they're going to get well, I challenge them all, and I've watched them for years, and I know a lot of the groups that are out there. And as Sheila said, she's dealt with Angela. Angela and I are really good. All I can say is phone buddies, because we've never met each other, but we get together every couple of months and so on. And she's asked me to teach some of her modules, and I said, I'm on a little different path here, Angela, and there's some areas that I'm more advanced in it, and I don't really want to change my structure. But we use private member associations because that's the only way that you can operate. If but the bottom line is once you have access and once you're sitting there, um, and we're just right there. And the only reason we're not sitting down with the private bankers is because the one that I talked to, he didn't know what he was talking about,
Yeah, we're
because
all
he
right
didn't.
there. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
is she still
Well, but
working with?
he didn't even know that the financial system is changing. He's still
Yeah.
living in the world that, buy. He says, well, how much money are you bringing in for us to invest? I said, man, you don't even. I says, I'm the investor. I'm investing in you, the bank. I'm giving you the money,
Yeah, when
right?
we talked back in 2022, or well, no, it was just after the POG primer came out, and she was all gung ho about getting education, and I think we were working with Bernard, who was doing the financial system underneath and all of this, and I didn't want to get into the money, and I just wanted to capture and kind of stop, like I say, this the pens, but I know that it does truly fit. But then I thought she was going also into a military notice angle, and then she was also pairing up with a chap in the States, but I'm not too sure. So,
Well,
uh,
they're making. Well, they paired up with the one in the States, but the reports back I get, it's a little bit disorganized.
yeah, that's
But
what I would
but
concern is, but
the thing is we live in Canada. We're not in the States.
yeah,
And
yeah, and then I was
unless one's
surprised to
going to
see
this,
her pair up that way.
well, because some people are making declaration that they're non-residents of the United States.
Okay, okay, yeah,
Right? Now
yeah,
they're not totally wrong, because Trump has announced that we're the 51st state. It's not the fact that we're the 51st state. What we are is we are joined, and it's going to be the North American Commercial Zone. That's what the future is. We had it before under NAFTA. We all know what NAFTA is, and NAFTA brought Mexico, United States, and Canada together. The problem with it was is that Brian Mulroney was just as much a crook as the other ones, and they all lined their own pockets with it. And he was part of the old Airbus deal and everything else. When you start knowing how to turn these rocks over, you say, "Oh my God, I can't believe I've lived in this matrix." So the only way that we can do it is to take. If you go into the military side, I don't want to say how's that working for you so far, but You know, it isn't because they're not military. When you go to the military, I was in a paramilitary organization. I was in a police service. And when I left, they said, well, you can't do that. You've got these and such documents. Well, the thing was, is before I gave them my resignation, which was 2 weeks after receiving policeman of the month for 5,000 men and honored with a dinner and everything else, I said, guys, you're going all the wrong way here. I've got to leave. I was due to be promoted to sergeant. I was going to be one of the youngest sergeants ever promoted in the Toronto Police Force at that time, 27 years of age. And I said, no, no, I'm not doing this, guys. I'm not doing it. So they put me in the penalty box for 2 years. And then at the end of 2 years, I said, this is not where I'm going because I saw in that 2 years by not being in the everyday activity, I saw how they were slowly changing everybody over. So when
Yeah.
I watch the systems here of how they're doing the UN thing and the ICLEI thing and everything else, I know what they're doing because I was trained to be that part. But I also know that they're the majority, and the only way that they're going to be, they will leave you alone if you have the knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
They will not leave you alone if you're one of the masses.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They'll make asses out of the masses. And that's really what it is. And you can go all these cliches, but you watch the Matrix movie. The Matrix movie tells you just as it is. The Wizard of Oz. Watch the movie. It tells you right there. All Dorothy had to do was pull the curtain back, saw that it was a little short guy on a big stool and a big microphone, and click her heels, and she was back home. The delusion was gone. The rest of it was all fugazi.
Yeah.
That's what we work in. So, going back to the people, what I would say to you is that I would only present the stabilization to all the areas. Yes, all these things are going to be done. But, folks, if you really want to get control because they've worked all their lives to get what they have, anybody that's getting older gets worried about probate and wills and laws and everything else and who's going to look after my estate. Well, you set it up before you go when you live in a private trust and you control everything.
Can I just ask one question? I was reading about living trust. Is that the same as a private trust?
No,
Okay.
no, a living trust is a statutory trust. Anything that a lawyer presents to you is
Statutory.
going to
Got it.
cost you money. It's going to cost you money.
Got it.
It's fiction, total
That's it.
fiction.
Well,
They have
well, they
jurisdiction over fiction.
that's it. That's it. I mean, the bar. It's just like it's laughable. It's laughable.
That's why
And
I
you'll
can't
get them
believe
to
this game is still going, you know? Like
well
they got
because there's so
nothing,
many.
we got everything, and we're still talking about this.
Well, we're moving a little bit further,
Oh
not
yeah.
as big
Yeah,
as
I'm
we'd like
yeah,
to be.
yeah.
I'm only going onto this website because my group is forcing me to do this. This emblem here and everything else. But let's go tell some people because here we were 44, then we were 33, then we were 28, then we were 18, and now we're 13. I said, well, yes, but all those other of the 44, they all still have their status and standing. They just don't want to do the work to go to rest
Yeah.
because I do what I want to do now. I don't do what I have to do. And when you ask me about the hydro bills and everything else, I dealt with electric utilities here. I pay my hydro bill once a year. They get all, you know, but I have it timed properly. They can't cut me off in the wintertime.
Yeah,
And
do you
then
pay
you,
407 bills or speed camera
I don't use the 407.
or speed
I,
camera if you get one of those speed camera tickets for $80? What would you do with one of those
I,
suckers?
I can't say I've done any of those, but
This is the
first
emails
of
that
all,
I'm getting all the time.
I'm
Like,
I just
sure.
got
Yeah,
yeah,
one.
well,
yeah, we got two of them. Man.
it's
yeah,
like, and that's what I want is to be able for people just to be able to stop
yeah,
the
but
fear so that they can get into this education of learning what you're doing,
well, that just again, it's one of those discussions. Is yeah, I got a speed camera in a school zone. Now, I don't agree with these schools. They're just tax grabs. I agree with that. They're tax grabs. I wish they had them from 7 in the morning till 8:30. And then the little curtain hanger should be in school and not bothering us. And we can go about doing our business. And when they get out at noon hour, there's another time. And when they get out at
Oh
to
no,
for
what
a
they're
car.
doing in Guelph is they're taking the limits from like a 40 and dropping it
They
into a
They're
did it.
dropping
They
the
30.
did
And
limits
it here.
people
down.
are
Yeah.
so used to 40,
Yeah.
everybody's getting $80 freaking tickets. And
Yeah.
they're not speeding at all. It's a
Yeah.
cash freaking cow grab like the 407, and they
And
shouldn't be paying it at all. And they need to push back on this because the groceries are enough. This is what I'm saying is they don't have a year and a half, let alone a freaking month. This is, and I
well, I'd like to know
understand
where did the law come from? Where did the law come? These are municipal cameras. Who gave the municipalities the right to collect taxes? And I do not
the
consent. So
CAO until that CAO is
if I
gone.
got one of the tickets, I'd be sending it right back in. I've
That's
notified the
what
Ministry of I've notified the Ministry of Transport that I'm not using their documents in commerce, so therefore they have no jurisdiction over me.
everything Crown is
I
person and
travel for the
corporate.
last 4 years with a temporary sticker on my license plate. I don't pay license
Yeah,
fees.
I
I,
understand that, but
you know,
everything Crown is person and registered legal and Crown property. Like this
but
is
I don't live there.
yeah, and I
I
know
don't live
that
there.
that's where we want everybody, but it's that transition where people are at that
Yeah.
foreclosure period, and no, they can't go to small claims and do, and but
But they have to be willing to learn,
yeah,
Sheila. You can't
I
force it.
know,
You can't force it
yeah,
to them.
I
As I
know.
say, I mean, if somebody comes on board with us, it's going to cost them $250 a month. It's going to
I
cost
thought
them
you said
$250 a month.
$25 a month.
No, no, if they want to be part of the website and so on, but
Oh, okay.
they want to come into the tutoring and everything else. It's so intense and there's so much
Yeah.
information
Oh
there.
yeah. Oh yeah.
It works out to about $2,900 by the time they finish. So
And
I'm
where are
giving
you
them.
located, John? Sorry, where do you live?
I'm in Aurora. I'm in
You're in
Aurora
Aurora? Okay, down
and
with Joel Sussman and
Muskoka. So
okay.
yeah,
So
but
would you be available for a new market meeting?
oh yeah, I'm 10 minutes down the road.
Okay,
You
well
know.
that's a possibility where this could
But
be.
there's lots of groups in Newmarket. I mean, there's
Yeah.
Christian named Daniel that's been teaching the Bible for a number of years, and all he does is go and hide under rocks. So, like, I mean, there's no,
I know
I
Christian Dan. They're just trying with the Bible and scripture. That's what and
I know them all. I've been there, and
I
I've sat
know.
in their rooms and I've given them the space.
Yeah.
And the thing is, God bless them. God bless
I
them.
know. It truly we're
And
right
a
at the right
Newmarket
time.
up Woodbine Avenue at Newmarket at Mount Albert Road there,
Yeah.
three
Yeah.
nights
Yeah.
a week at the restaurant. Three
Yeah.
nights a week you can go there for a meeting.
Yeah, they want to
It's
schedule us for July 30th. Yeah, July
yeah,
30th
yeah.
for their meeting. So
But
um
people aren't willing to work. They're going there to have a meal and to listen to somebody talking. Oh yeah. Nobody's willing to work. That's why
yeah, they
uh,
go and
you know,
listen. Like Dr. Trozy
Yeah.
filled the house, so they go and listen and
There you
talk,
go and listen. Yeah. Yeah.
buy
Yeah.
a
He's a good
book or
speaker. He's funny. He makes a
yeah,
few
I
jokes. He's
know.
great.
But I
Yeah.
mean
No,
maybe
that's exactly, and our experience too
yeah,
is that
yeah,
we started had first year, a bunch of speakers, blah blah blah. Okay, let's try to achieve something,
yeah.
and we came up with no business plans, a little too grand a term for what we decided, but we're going to focus on these areas. Here's what we're going to do. We need leaders, and we put it out to the group. What do you think of these ideas? Great. Well, that's perfect. Okay, 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 great. Go, go, go. Okay, we need five people
Volunteers.
just to run. Yeah, we need five people to run each one of these groups.
Yeah.
Crickets, right? Nothing. But actually,
Well,
what
two people we
Babs,
approached that would ended up coming forward after we approached them, but other than that, they didn't
Yeah.
come with
yeah,
anything.
But
no,
you got to give people a break because we're all
sure, yeah,
exhausted. We're all stressed. We're all frustrated.
yeah,
We've been throwing stones at this monster for a long
no
time. So
need
I
to be. Do
understand
I
it
look
totally.
stressed?
Yeah, which
You
is
know,
why I've always focused on I
I'm
only
not
want to give
stressed,
somebody a
guys.
solution. I don't want to give them
yeah.
hopium. I don't want to misdirect them. I don't want to promise them anything or sell them anything. I just want to give them a simple solution because that's how fraud should have a simple solution, you know?
Well,
It's
that's and
Well,
that brings me back a little bit to, and Sheila, you and I talked about it on the Thursday after, or was it Thursday? Friday, Thursday.
It's
Thursday.
all a blur.
It's all a blur. Yeah, me too. We talked about it and what John said to me too, and it always kind of struck me to what Sheila, you've been saying, and it was sort of one of our questions, the panel that didn't really get asked is, if what you're saying is true, why are the councillors and the mayors not coming forward saying, "Holy cow, I'm in a fraudulent position. I'm defrauding. I'm lying. All these things," and then John, I think, is what he stated was, "Well, we have no standing, right? They don't have to listen to us because we're just slaves. We're serfs, right? So
Yeah.
Have status and standing, why don't
For
you lay a
kids,
charge against them if you believe that it's fraud? But you don't have the ability to do that because you go into the
exactly,
courthouse and you want to lay a charge. They say you don't have the right to lay a
yeah,
no,
charge. Get
you're a
out of here.
yeah,
ward of the
exactly,
state.
or
Yeah,
or the
You're a
state,
ward of this. I'm not a ward of the state.
yeah,
I
yeah.
walk in, I'll tell you, there's a
Catch
different air.
22.
I go to court and there's, well, I mean, Christy, you were there. I mean, I made eye contact with that judge, and that judge knew that I knew what because I was listening to what she was saying, and she knew I was listening to what she was saying. But there's also the aura that we put out, and we're not all there going, we're going to get you, we're going to get. No, no, no. Okay, we're going to do this in equity, and
And
the word is equity. Okay, and equity is in common law. But in 1878, they moved that in Canada from going from the common law courts into the Superior Court of Ontario. Now they're combined. Well, you've got every right, if you have the proper status and standing, to walk into that judge and say, I demand to hear an equity court hearing. I'm walking out of this criminal court. You have no jurisdiction over me. Where are we meeting? And it's like a boardroom meeting. Like I said to Jonathan, ask her for a private meeting in your
Yeah.
chambers. And she goes, no,
yeah,
no. She said, who are you talking to?
yeah,
Can
good
I
stuff.
ask, does it work the same way with the municipality at all? Like if somebody of your standing were to approach the, the mayor and the councilors, would they recognize your standing as different and would they have to listen to you? Like, is that
They don't have to
transfer
listen to
over?
they don't have to listen to anything, but if they don't wish to negotiate and sit down and have a business conversation, then where's my resolution? My resolution's in the courts because they're committing fraud.
Yeah,
All
it
right.
could be
So
presented to the clerk or the mayors or the councilors from John's point of view as, hey, this is blah blah blah. So yeah, it could come from that angle too.
well, but the counselor that was there, I forget his name, and he's saying he's reading the things out that 30 years old, and in nowhere does it talk about the people. It talks about the corporate activity.
Yeah,
So they are a corporation. What about we the people? The
yeah,
fact of the matter is there ain't any we the people out there because they lied to your parents at birth, and your parents gave it
exactly.
over. And if anybody gives back that certificate, I'm sorry, you got to be smoking your shoelaces because it's the only security you have. Your certificate of live birth has the bond number on it in the top right hand corner, even though it's a certified copy. You'll never get the original back because it's sitting in the Vatican. The Pope owns all those names. The Pope owns every surname in the Western world, 209 countries. He owns every surname. Okay. So therefore all you have is what? Your given name. And your given name was given by your parents, and they unknowingly and without full disclosure signed you over. You received 3 weeks after your birth. See, the registrar of Ontario, he's off scot free because I was born in Ontario, so the registrar made a record of an event,
yeah,
my birth.
yeah,
They took that record of birth and they sold it to the federal government, who gave them at the time was $750,000, which was back in the 1950s, and that's helped run the province. So they sold out to the federal government, and the government willingly gave them the money over because as soon as they had that social insurance number, which they didn't have back in the 50s, as soon as they had that registration number, 3 weeks later, what is your date of birth? Your date of birth, your certificate of live birth is the day you were born on. Your registration
Yeah,
date
yeah, yeah.
is the date that your
Date of
entity
your
was
birth.
born. That is your entity. Okay. Now, what is your birth certificate? They say it can't be used for identification. It can only be used for proof of registration. Why? Because that's all it is a proof of registration, but it is a receipt number it's your coat check ticket. Your parents gave over the mink coat to the coat check person. You came back to get it. And you didn't have a birth certificate. Well, if you don't, no ticket, no laundry. You know, if you don't have the ticket, you're not getting back. So why would I ever sign the back of it and send it back into the Bank of Canada that issued the damn thing? That's just giving away all the tomatoes and the basket. So those are the two documents that I have that are the foundation of where I'm standing, which gives me the ability to stand like this guy right here with my arms crossed and say, "Come on down. I want to talk to you. Show me where your jurisdiction is over me. I've made these declarations and you've created a stopple. You have not returned my information." They haven't returned information to me since 2003. But guess what? When CRA takes me to court in 2009, I didn't go to jail. And the judge said to me, "Boy, you've done your work." He said, "You've done your homework." He says, "Don't do that anymore. If they send you a notice, even send them back, you know?" I said, "Yeah, yeah, okay." I still haven't sent in taxes.
I'm going to
So,
throw a picture. Am I muted? No. This is this chart. Is this that I included in the legalese version? Can you see that, John, of the
You want
public
to share
trust?
It's
screen?
in the chat. It's in the chat.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah, and I don't know how to
oh, is
share
it in
screen.
the chat? Okay, hold on. I'll go to the
If
chat.
someone can copy or paste it, but this is
I
kind of what
can. If you click it, it shows up there.
if I do or
Should show.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
anybody
Oh,
shows
okay.
it.
Well,
Yeah.
that,
it
yeah,
on.
I know it very well.
is that
And we,
kind of what you do or what you're
well,
like
how do you comprehend that?
I comprehend that as collapsing that all caps name or that I see that as correcting the legal mistake. Why do
Okay,
I have
well,
so
there's a
many
very good
windows
video. There's a
open?
very good video on YouTube that we
Yeah.
direct our people to, and it explains it very, very well. But the left-hand circle, the yellow circle, is the double entry bookkeeping, and
Yes, yes.
the double
Yeah.
entry bookkeeping is if it goes in on one side, it has to be balanced out on the other.
Yeah,
Well,
so
we
the private
discharge.
trust, the new private trust would be the blue circle that you're talking about.
Oh
That
yeah, but don't overwalk what I'm trying to say to you here,
okay,
because
sorry.
what you do is you discharge all debt in the yellow circle.
Yes.
Once all debt has been discharged in the yellow circle and you call all creditors, we do that by sending out what's called a notice connect, a notice of the death of the debtor, and
Okay.
we call all claims. We give them 60 days to send in their claim, and none of them
Okay.
do.
Okay.
And then once they call in after that fact, because we discharge all debt because they haven't called in,
So
they
you're
call in
doing a
after the 60
default
days.
through the notice process of 60 days then.
Well,
Like
we call all creditors and say you've got 60 days. We're closing
right.
out this estate.
Right.
As soon as we zero out that estate, all the other monies that are, well, assets, they're not monies because there
Yeah.
is no money.
Yeah.
So the asset goes over to the blue circle and
Yeah.
we start managing it from the trust.
Okay. Okay, perfect. This is yeah, it fits.
It
And
all melds together.
yeah,
Like I said, what you're doing is not wrong.
yeah,
We
no,
just need to,
Peggy's approach is the touchy-feely, which draws people in, which we saw it drew people in, because people connected. Yeah, just but your approach is more of this kind of where, but
I draw people in
it's
as well.
more people have to hands on and really kind of understand this though too.
Listen, for $3,000, you can write to a guy
Yeah,
in Winnipeg and he'll send you a binder with every document you need to fill
yeah.
in. You fill it in, you send it off to the government, and then the CRA calls you and says, "We got such and such document sitting in front of us. Why did you send that to us?" And they're going to say, "Has this person had the ability?" Every one of my people can answer that. They're not afraid of the
I
CRA.
know.
They call the CRA up and put them on the hot seat. Why?
Yeah,
Because the CRA are our collection agency now.
yeah.
They're art collection agency because these people that have been the utilities and anybody that's got a 96 on the bottom of their bill, okay, they got a 96 on the bottom of the bill, they're doing double entry bookkeeping.
Yeah.
So they are putting with your agreement to take their service, they're putting that in. They're getting paid by the government every
Are
month out
you
of your trust.
96ing your bills?
I don't send back in the 96ers. I don't send back because they they're set up in a way that they say we're not set up to work with you, deal with your bank. And I kept saying, why are they saying this? We're not set up to deal with this, deal with your bank. And they're absolutely right. Because in the bill collection side, in the bill department, they're just used to getting fiat payments in.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
aren't used to getting, they don't have access for
They can't
promissory notes or
recognize a
anything else, right?
discharge. Yeah. Yeah.
So we send it to the head of accounting. With electric utilities, I sent it down and they're in Hamilton. And after 6 months back and forth with these people, and my lights are still on, 6 months back and forth, I finally get the assistant to the head accountant. I says, I don't want to speak to you. I want to speak to that one that I sent that document to. If he's the chief, I need to speak to the chief. And she said, he hasn't been in this office for over 18 months.
Yeah. Yeah. We're
But
just
that's
all
where they
talking in
have him
person.
listed as. It's all bullshit, I'm
Yeah, I
saying.
know, I
So,
know. Like you said, the Wizard of Oz, pull it back, and it's just little lever nonsense, right? And
so
so,
anyway,
yeah, this
she
is
very calmly said to me, John, I know what you're doing. Deal with your bank. Present it to your bank. Now, what do we
okay.
do? What do we do? We now present in the special deposit accounts. We
Okay.
get that money in from our trust. It sits in the special deposit.
Yeah.
And then our indenture, which is the agreement for the trust of the rules of standard operating procedures for the trust, it says that you must look after all debt to look after that entity because it's that entity that's making the government money. So all the receipts that we get, it's all a taxing process. At the end of the year, all the receipts that we get, we put together. And some people know T5 and T5008, but those are security presentments, right? Well, guess what? Every receipt that you get, every bill that you get, every receipt you get, that's a security. It doesn't matter whether it's from Tim Hortons, the gas station, or to go get your shoes reglued. It doesn't matter. As soon as they put a receipt on it, that person did something and got an exchange for it. Guess who pays it? I used to say Trudeau gives it back, but it's not Trudeau anymore. It's the Carn man, the guy
The
that
Carney.
the
Ernie.
Carn artist, the Carn artist. Yeah,
Carnage. Carnage.
yeah, Carnage. Yeah. So I mean, in the end result, I'm giving you a whole overview here tonight, but
Oh,
it
yes,
all comes
perfect.
down.
Yep.
But the idea with this binder, I know someone that did the binder. And she's calling me and saying, well, I got a call from the CRA. I says, sorry. And she said, well, what do I do? I says, call the guy in Winnipeg. He's the one that sold you the
Definitely.
binder. He took $3,000 of your money and you don't even know what you're doing. Right. So, like I say, at one time, I used to do this for free and then I was being abused. So then I was forced by members of my group to go $100.
How
And
long have you been
now
doing this? Sorry?
all my life, no, about 5 years. But as
5
far
years.
as as far as pay as you go, we've been doing it about it was October 23 we started pay as you go.
So, yeah.
So okay, so what I've done is I've stepped it up, I've compressed it. The learning modules will be there,
Yeah.
and it'll all be those are my spokespeople, the voices you heard. It very calmly comes across. You'll be able to go in, do a module. There'll be a question and answer. You get that right, you can go on to the next module, and so on and so forth. And then if you that module is complete, it allows you to go to the next level up, the next tier
Excellent.
because it's not a case of not letting you go. I mean, you can walk right through the whole freaking thing
Yeah.
if you want,
You got to have the
but
No,
if you
understanding
don't know it,
and the
there's no value in it,
understanding at the
right?
same time. Absolutely. And that's why I think that people have the fear. I want to have a chat with Peggy is that it can be overwhelming, but, the only way to handle fear is to go right through it. Like, can't, and you'll realize it's not really anything. So, but,
Well, the only situation I see with the process Peggy's doing is a lot of people have done it that way, and there's no results.
yeah,
well,
There's
apparently though, Brady, right? And I'm just going to speak for Peggy here. I know
yeah.
she's not here, but she'll probably listen. And so I want to be, cognizant of the fact that, we're not she
Oh no,
has her process, and Brady has had success with
yep,
this,
yeah,
where they have been sending the bills back to the PG&T as the trustee, and basically they are saying, I'm just not that person. I'm opting out of the system, and I'm not paying the bills. They're not accessing the assets in any stretch. They're basically just saying, no,
There's a
than act,
misunderstanding.
right?
Yeah.
And living as man and living as a, there's obviously a huge spiritual component to it, but
But
just
what
for
I don't
that,
see, if I may, where is if you go and under the Bills of Exchange Act, a check is a bill and a bill is a check. If the waitress hands you a bill for your wings on Wednesday night, and you say thanks very much, and you endorse it and give it back to her, you say I accept it for value and give it back to you. What's she going to do? She's going to go, this is coming right out of my paycheck, right? So you have to take it from all levels, whether it's a large corporation. The same thing with hydro. If hydro is giving me, if I'm buying the hydro from, now where we've got them is the fact that they're monopolies. So one area has, I can't do anything but do that. And if I go on off the grid and strictly on solar, then the town comes after me because they're saying, oh, it's on our property and everything else. So I have to have a loyal title to tell them to stay off my property. So my Muskoka property I run differently than my Aurora property. It's a different type of. So you have to look at where your advantages are. But I'm saying if you're doing something and you're getting a service for it, then bring in the dollars that are accessible to you, and they print the dollars because of your autograph. So at the level that we're at, we are writing the documents, the bills of exchange that are causing the banks to have assets deposited. We're just not putting them in the general deposit account because the general deposit account, as soon as they get it, they have control over it. So we're putting it into it, and they bucked us. We're going in there, and on the back of our signature cards, all deposits are for special deposit only. Well, the guy that's taking the application is going, oh, I don't know if I can do that. And I said, well, I sit as co-trustee for a good number of the people that are moving the process, so I go on the appointments with them. I said, I'll tell you what, how about you do me a favor? Why don't you put it through to your legal and compliance department? And if they reject it, you get back to us and we'll come back in and sign the other papers. Not one of them has come back. Why? Because compliance knows that we have the right, but they don't tell their clients. Right on the front of their document on section 4.3 of their document, it says that we're able to not only produce, but also accept bills of exchange and promissory notes. But you go in at the retail level and they won't take them because they haven't been trained to do so. So now we have to call them to task, which we are doing right now with the legal department, saying your contract. I had an assistant manager and the accounts manager signing off on the back of the agreements as we were doing them. They're signing off as witness to our signature. I said, well, thank you very much. He says, what are you thanking me for? I says, for entering into contract with me. He says, well, what do you mean? I do this every day. I'm just witnessing your signature. I says, no, it says signed for by an officer of the bank. That's what you just did. You're an officer of the bank, right? He said, yep. I said, well, here, let's turn back to the first page here. It says right here that I can accept promissory notes and deposit promissory notes. Where do I bring those in? She says, oh, we don't handle those on our level. I says, so you're in breach of contract is what you're telling me. They don't even know their own papers that they're signing. You know, with the real estate, you might have known it when you came out of school, but you don't know it now. If you knew every clause that's there, and that's one of the biggest things that we learned, or I learned when I went to court. There weren't second appearances. When I went to court, my evidence was given. They never had to call me back because I knew what I came in was categoric. And I'm not saying that I'm a stiff guy by any means. I'm one of the most lackadaisical guys going, but I've got people that are much more secured than I am in putting notes together. But that's the biggest thing. With a private trust, you have to take meticulous notes because you are chief cook and bottle washer. And that's where they'll get you. So we teach people how to do their entries and how to do their meetings and so on and so forth. But it's a change in life, guys. There's no doubt about it. It's not for everybody. If I've got 100 people in the room, if I were to get 8 to 10 people out of 100 people, that's about what you're going to be looking at. Because they say, oh no, we don't want to do that. We're supposed to be boating.
Mm.
well,
Yeah,
and
no,
that's
that's a
why I think the attraction for the estate redemption, there's an attraction because it
Yeah, but
is.
they're wasting their time. What I'm trying to do, I'm trying to stop them from having hurt. They're going to do all of that, and there is no redemption. I'm sorry. And Brady, show me. I'm sorry. I'm the doubting Thomas now. I'm a recovering Catholic, but I want to see it. I want a doubting Thomas. Where's the stab wound?
I'll send you the
Show.
transcript. He actually pushed it back and said, "Hey, I'm not the owner of this all caps, and if this is something to do with that, then you've got to call the owner in to participate." So, and it caused a stay. It stops
Oh, good
the
for him.
aggressive attack. So don't say that it doesn't do anything. I believe what she's doing, this approach is just confronting gently, peacefully confronting the system to cause a stay in that, hey, it's the public guardian isn't able to respond, the governor general isn't responding, but the POGG puts a face on it by having it go to the clerk and the mayor. Are you guys the trustees, or what's happening here? And it's that kind of thing. And so I think what she's doing or approaching it that way is really causing some good ripples, but we also need some other, like what you're doing is actually for people that want to control it and not just do that.
You're changing your standing, whereas,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Well, Peggy is too. She's clarifying
Right?
to them that
Yeah.
I'm living. I'm not
Yeah.
part of
Yeah.
this. So she is, and actually, those letters that she's sending qualify as an expressed will in according to the Financial Administration Act, which is part of the Bills of Exchange Act. It's claiming that she didn't abandon that security or that trust without saying that she didn't. So and her status change of clarifying that she's not in this civil mammon system, but she's also not pigeonholing herself saying I'm this and I'm this and I'm this and I'm this, which causes adversarial or division. Like she's not saying I'm sovereign and I have a low deal title and I've got a promissory note. She's keeping it very soft and saying I'm not this. And that's when the Bible, I am that I am, is what am I? Well, I'm not that municipal thing. That's so now what John, I believe, is saying, well, this is what I am. I'm the private man. So you're getting into that pigeonhole. Is that how I kind of see it? But
In Black's Law Dictionary, the term stay is defined as follows, abridged and paraphrased for clarity. A stay is a suspension or postponement of a judicial proceeding, judgment, or enforcement of a court order. A stay of proceedings is a court order halting further legal process in a trial or other legal action, and this can be temporary or permanent. But a stay is just a stay. It is not a complete issue. I all I'm saying is I
well,
go for completeness.
when I look up stay etymology, it means to hold back, to stand still, to remain standing and upright, be erect, stand firm, stand in battle, abide, be unmovable, be motionless,
But
remain.
what does that have to do in the courts? What does that mean in the courts?
You're saying I don't belong here, kind of thing, and you're expressing your standing by standing, as opposed to sending in a piece of paper saying this is who I am to an artificial fictional system. Like how that's why I don't think man can even
That
talk to the system, and it just has to totally exit using,
well,
but needs to still
that's where the
function in the
decedent
system.
non-decedent comes in.
Yes, yes, absolutely,
That
absolutely. We're on the
that's where the
same page. Yeah,
that's
yeah,
where the declarations are necessary because
yes,
I go in, there's no stay. It's done with like it's done. Okay.
yeah,
You have no stand you have standing here or you don't have standing here.
yeah,
If
yeah.
you don't have standing here,
Jurisdiction
then
or
we're going
not.
to proceed.
Yeah,
If you have standing, it's going to be done like now.
yeah. And
So
we'll send
the
you the Brady stuff that comes from, the transcript and how he actually did separate the legal title from the
oh
man
yeah,
and
yeah.
and push. So anyway,
Well, and again,
I should
I'm
get
only saying
going.
that
So
yeah, I need to as well, but I'm suggesting that people need to have a path and comprehension.
absolutely.
Um,
Yeah,
FOC 2.0 will be out there and available. I'm
absolutely.
not recruiting, I'm offering.
Perfect.
And if you wish us to, because you have a group of 300 people, you had a group of 60 come in the other day. there's ones that were there that wanted to hear themselves spoken. There's others there that were wanting to promote. There was others there that, so it, it's a focus type of thing, and you don't want the tire kickers, you want the doers.
Yeah.
And
Well, I
you
mean, that
know,
was I was going to get back to that as the overriding sentiment of those that were, people that a lot of people just, yeah, of I think it was 60, 70 people there, 30 of them say, yeah, that's really interesting. Well, hopefully somebody can do everything for me and, you know, and get my black debit card, right? And then the other half were probably like, yeah, like
they don't even
I
know
want
what that
more.
is.
Yeah.
Right, no, me either. So they don't know either, but they just want somebody to do the work for them, right? But the other half, I think, like a lot of people came up to me and said, "Yeah, we got to do more on this. We need more, 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 more." So, um, I think we'd have a lot of interest in more of the workshops or whatever is the next step. You
Yeah.
guys recommend?
The
Yeah.
reason I'm putting it off to September is it's good for somebody that's closed up for the winter to do their study, and they're doing everything by registered mail. Or if they're on a sailboat in the Caribbean, they can still do their reading.
Ah,
I have another question. What if I'm a mom and I have a son who's under 25? Have you ever,
Well, under 18, over 18, they can make their own declarations.
so
They
so
can they
so
can
he
take
would make his
charge.
own declaration. I wouldn't unless he was under 18. Is that right?
Yeah, open up his own trust at 18. Say, hey, listen, I'm going to live in the private. Anything you're using my name for, because all they're doing is selling his name on the market. So he's a commodity. So he is a beneficiary, not the trustee. Right now, if he doesn't speak up between the ages of 18 and 25, he's got that 7 years.
He's
You hear
23,
about,
so he would have to, before 25, speak up
well,
to,
they're going to start issuing work bonds on him at age 25. They
yeah.
put out 30-year work bonds at age 25. That's why you can't have retirement before age 55, because they put 30-year work bonds out on you. And then they progressively put them as long as you're working, but they're progressively worth less as you grow older. Your most valuable work bonds are put out in your first 5 years, 25 to 30.
We need to include how people can help their kids do this.
Yeah, like
How
if
it's
it's a
so
different
important because
process.
that
Well,
will at least stop the feed of the new generation. And once they learn about it, yeah.
And
So
I think you'll get more people. You'll certainly get
yes,
mama bears out there going, I'm
yes,
going to get my kids out of this,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
If it's a slightly separate process as well, just to, talk to
yeah,
that as well, because I think that there's a huge market for all these mama bears who want to
yeah.
free their kids now that they know, right, that they're going to be,
well, the thing is with the mama bears is that if they get their own trust in position, that trust is worth billions of dollars, not millions, but billions of dollars. And if they put the proper PPSA, which is a Private Property Security Act, lien against that entity, and they hold it by the trust, it's the trust that holds it. If Mama Bear has a misfortune and she's on her way and she's put out the proper paperwork, Mama Bear's looked after her children on infinitum because the trust looks after them because it's instructed to do so. And the government don't get involved at all. But if Mama Bear has some investments and she passes, and one of the beneficiaries throws up their hand and throws it into probate, and it gets stuck in there for 5 or 10 years, by the time the lawyers and the courts are finished with it, there's nothing left. This goes absolutely transparently from me to who my heirs are. And they may not even be my sons. My sons may just stay beneficiaries, but they're not beneficiaries until such time as I die, because our trusts do not have beneficiaries other than me. Okay? Other than that, I'm giving gifts away. If I want to give somebody $1 million in a gift, I give them $1 million in a gift. That's my business, right? If I have that capacity and ability to do that. But this is where you get into when you're talking about the other trusts, all other trusts. They don't make there's no things put in place for carrying on. It's only selfishly for you while you're alive. All these other trusts are all doing that. All right. And so this is where the rubber meets the road. Yes, it's a little bit of work, but it's not hard work. It's just work. And some people get it done in a week, and I've got one couple of ladies here. They do 17 hours a day for a week and a half, and they got all their notices to 17 different parties. All they show pictures of it. Their whole tables are filled with all these envelopes. I didn't do that. I said,
Are
why the
they
hell would I give
register
up all?
mailings, all 17?
Absolutely, absolutely has to be.
Okay.
Absolutely has to be because as soon as that, it's the change of hands, and that's where the lawful and legal comes in there. And that registration number becomes your document number, and it's noted in your book that you sent it out. The, in a court of equity, if you go and you've got a book full of documents, I've got binders. I've got binders sitting here that are full of my documents. I go into the courtroom and the judge says, well, did you notify them? And I said, just a second here. And I open it up and I said, on such and such a date under registered mail number such and such, I gave them this. 20 days later on such and such a date, I sent them number two. And 10 days later after that, I gave them number three and considered it as estoppel. If they don't want to deal with me, therefore, that's why you can't put your head between your legs and not do anything. If somebody sends you a letter, that's what the judge said to me. He said, "You're only here because you didn't answer the letter. If you had answered the letter, go away. I don't want to talk to you." He says they couldn't have done anything, you know, and that's true.
Yeah.
And all they did was ask you to return. And I said, "No, I didn't." So, yeah, I haven't for 26 years now.
Right on.
I'm
Well,
still here.
yeah,
Very,
that's
very,
what I want to see for everybody for sure. So, well,
Well,
that's I
yeah.
really appreciate your time because we didn't have a chance to connect and
Well,
it's
and again, I'm in favor of everybody's, but
yeah.
let it fit in when you have
Yeah. Yeah. No,
a,
it's
when
a,
good to
it's
hear
a
that this
big.
going,
comes from Angela because she did reach out to me and we were working together, but she was more pushing me into the educating, and I'm not a talker. I'm a walker and I wanted just to head my way. So it wasn't that
Just a second here. You said it's good that it came from Angela. What about if Angela came from me? Oh,
wouldn't
I just
yeah,
wanted to
yeah.
ask you.
Well, yeah, you could but know that your ideas both merge. It
Oh,
doesn't it doesn't
okay.
really come from anywhere, but the fact
Yeah.
that it fits and it confirms,
Well,
that, yeah,
they've got some great work, and I mean, I send my people to the website. Some of the people that left me, I said, go over to Angela's.
yeah,
They've come back to me and says, oh, that didn't work, and I said,
yeah.
well, it's a different teaching style.
She
That's
was in
all.
it for the right reasons, for her grandkids,
She's a
for her
great gal.
kids,
She's a
for
great gal.
so yeah. And
Yeah.
she did a vision board with POGG on it, and
Oh yeah.
'cause she envisioned that this would be. And but I like I say, I wasn't an educator. I was just I looked for Maggie to educate, and then I've just been kind of a dasher to do it. Guess like, this is a
Well,
wicked
everyone has to
agenda,
educate
and people
themselves.
losing their houses, and like it's just nonsense. Like I'm just looking for the fastest way to
But
do it.
there's no reason to lose the house. Ask the bank for an
Yeah,
accounting,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know. I mean, the
yeah,
mortgage is there. You mean you're telling me you haven't been paid for this yet? You've been
yeah,
lying to me all this. So call them and task. Say, hey, let's go to court.
yeah,
So it may cost you $3,000 to get a forensic accounting of the mortgage, but you go into court with a forensic accounting and show that they've already been paid and they haven't been paying taxes on it. They haven't been paying taxes on it. Why? Because the government don't force them to do that, and
yeah.
it's all
Or
double
capital
entry
gains
bookkeeping.
either. They don't report the capital
No,
gains because it's all
oh, they
unregistered,
don't
all
like it
under
when
the
you start
state. Oh, I
asking them
know, it's
questions
just
like that.
criminal. It is truly, truly is, and which is why I can't believe it's still inflated. But but there's
Well,
more and
because
more.
because
Sorry.
there's only about 3% of the population that's doing what we're doing.
Yeah,
That's why.
yeah, yeah.
That's why.
Yeah.
So
So
anyway, I should get going. I got an
Yeah.
early morning. Greatly
bye bye.
appreciated. And if you can send that comparison that you did, that looks amazing. That chart that you
Yeah,
did.
I'll send it up to Chrissy and Perry, and they can get it
yeah,
out to you.
we'll
Well,
share it.
I've got your email license too.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
Yep,
Perfect.
yep,
Yeah. Okay, and I'll have a chat with you guys maybe tomorrow or something,
yep.
and kind
Uh,
of see.
yeah, and
I'll
we'll
touch.
obviously fill in Peggy. I'm sorry that she couldn't stay,
Can see
but we'll
she
fill
can
her
see
in.
the
She had
recording.
her nose out of joint a little bit too, but
Yeah, I
Well,
mean,
Well, you
she's
know
got it
what?
toughen up there.
I think though too, it is overwhelming when you get your face out there, and she's much like me as we
absolutely.
don't. And she just issued, like, she just put out a beautiful 13-minute video, and it's gone viral. And she's now real, like, she's just a
Oh,
grandma, so I
absolutely.
can totally understand it. Like,
Totally understand.
yeah,
And maybe she misunderstood kind of what we were doing tonight. Really, we were just sharing and
yeah,
running by this with
yeah,
John, getting to know what John is
yeah,
doing, trying to
yeah,
share,
yeah,
give if he has any input into what
yeah,
we're doing.
yeah,
I just think maybe we just started off on the wrong
yeah,
foot. I
yeah.
apologize.
Yeah. And
And
she's
I
right.
feel
I don't
Well,
live in Huntsville. I wouldn't do anything that's
my words to
wouldn't.
her was I was concerned on the path she was going.
Yep,
That's all I
yep,
said to
and
her.
absolutely greatly appreciated. We need people to point this stuff out
yes,
so
we
that
need
they
to have
don't
the
go down the wrong
dialogue.
way. Absolutely, greatly appreciated. Yep.
You're
Well,
educated.
and again, I just have to say to you, Sheila, you've been doing it 20 years, and to you, you live it. These other people are getting exposed to it, and they all become excited about it, and they start talking about it, and they don't know what they're talking about. And then when somebody puts them in the corner, or one of their kids says, "What are you talking about? You're crazy. You're wearing a tinfoil hat again." Like
Yeah.
it's
and
the
there's no
biggest thing.
rebuttal. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 You
Yeah.
gotta have
Well,
that.
God bless you, John, and
Bye, Sheila.
glad
Thank
I
you.
really appreciate
Thanks
tonight
so much, John.
and yeah, we'll touch base and we'll keep everybody in the loop for sure because we're all heading that way, right? So awesome. Thanks guys for
All
Well,
right.
organizing.
reach
Thanks
it
so
out.
much for
Thanks
everything.
for
Yeah,
on with me.
yeah.
Yep, we'll touch base tomorrow
Okay,
then.
Sheila. Bye
Okay,
bye.
Sheila,
Yeah.
Have
sounds
a good
good.
sleep when you get there.
Thanks, everyone.
Right.
Yeah.
Where are you going?
Bedtime.
Bad, bad, bad.
Oh, I see. I
John,
see. An early riser.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, me too.
Thank you, John.
Thanks,
Much
John.
appreciated. Obviously, we have, everybody is, they've put their heart and soul into their approaches, and it's not, and we talked about this. It's not always easy to hear, someone else's opinion. So, but we really
Well,
appreciate what you're,
well,
what,
and again, I don't do anything to damage anyone, only to help. And I'll only go like if I, why was I called up to see Jonathan? I mean, I was guided to be Jonathan. I wasn't supposed to be in Perry Sound that day. I was supposed to be somewhere else that day, which canceled, which opened that day up, which allowed Jonathan to move on with his life. And if you're talking to him, have him give me a call because he hasn't
okay.
returned my call.
Oh, okay,
And
I will.
Interesting.
you know,
And the fact
yeah.
that we met and all of this, it all happens for a reason, I do believe that as well. So,
And it's for the good of all the people. What you're doing
uh,
and what you're working for those people, they it's a tough job doing what you're doing because there's not the appreciation, although you get friends and everything else, but when it comes down to helping you out with it, you got to have a
well, we're
passion.
never doing it right. But I mean, we're just doing the best we can with what we've got. Everybody, we wants to do it differently, but that's fine. We just keep going. But that's why
Well, if you want to
I
choose
think
something in, you want to shoehorn something in for August, I'm more than up for it.
yeah, because I
Yeah,
think
for
like
sure.
different types of people, there are going to be people who with, the more spiritual side, they don't want, there are going to be people who, right, want to do that sort of spiritual side and it's easier.
It's all spiritual.
Yeah, but I mean, you know what I mean? Yours is definitely more tangible in terms of, right? You're taking a stand and you're doing this process to take back your standing. And I think that appeals to definitely another, a certain type of person. And we definitely have people, I think, in our group. I think, you know,
Well, I got stopped by half a dozen people, so I mean,
yeah,
I know there was that much interest, and you know,
Yeah,
when one talks from study, it comes out in conversation. You can't
absolutely.
hide that,
yeah,
and
You
so
know
yeah. You
what you're
can't have
talking about.
that.
yes, and
It
thank
was
you for not having me on the panel, by the
But yeah, but we'll do
way. That
something
would
in
have
August. We'll
Yeah, we'll
keep
do
in
something in
touch.
August for
So let
sure.
us know your
Yeah,
time.
yeah. No, there's a lot of
Your
interest
work
for
on your
sure, and
website.
yeah, yeah.
well,
And
I'm
it's
really
frankly,
I'm
yeah. Sorry. what I alluded to before earlier when Chrissy and I uh, started to say, okay, we've had a bunch of speakers, we've got a bunch of interests, we've done a few things. Let's try and do something. Let's try and achieve something. And there's education, there's health, there's 5 areas anyway. But the one thing that was of most interest to Chrissy and I was this particular topic, and we think it's where things can get back on the right track, right? So
May I ask, do you have children?
yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
and oh
So
yeah, for
25 and
sure.
23. That's why the
what?
25-year-old, it's too late. But if we, the
Well, it's
23-year-old,
not. No, 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 no. It's not too late.
Never too
And
late.
the
Yeah,
23-year-old is maybe too early. It's the mindset they've got to have. But the younger people are starting to. They're starting to see the deceit. They're tired of, they're internet people. They're internet kids. And
yeah,
as we get into the AI, they're going to learn it as well because I train the AI and I have quite an executive assistant there. And when I put stuff into my funnel and it comes out, it knows exactly what I'm looking for and where our stand is. And it's going, oh, that's a little bit outside of the norm. I'm saying, isn't it supposed to be the norm? Well, yes, but others aren't doing that. This is exactly the case, right? So it's recognizing and having the cognizant value of what we need to hold on to what it is, and as I was working earlier today for the presentation tomorrow night on the QFS and the money system, that's changing hourly. And I have a couple of spots that I get intel from, but there's no new intel. They're just waiting for the switch to be flipped and the number to go out and everybody to do their thing. And that'll be great, but there's going to be a lot of heartache. There's going to be a lot of heartache because many, many people we know don't even have a clue about what we're talking about.
that's for sure.
Most of the people out there have no idea what we're talking about. And so stock markets start crashing and savings accounts start going away. And all of a sudden the stocks that they were holding that were blue chip are now worth, they're brown paper. That's all it
but
is.
do you believe, like I've been told, the QFS mirrors bank accounts, just not the stock market? Mirrors bank accounts, RSP accounts, anything in a financial institution, it'll mirror, but
Well, there's going
stocks,
to be
no.
a mirroring. There's going to be a mirroring, but the depression, the monetary depression, the U.S. is losing 93% of its value on the dollar. Canada's losing 60%. We're already at 42%, right? If we pay a 42% surcharge for anything we buy from the States, so we're already at 42%, and it's going to go up another 28. So we're going to lose 60% on the dollar. So it's going to be a major recession. So for the next 5 years, anyways, 2030 is where it's going,
Yeah.
and we need to put ourselves in this position because those that aren't standing are wards of the state, and if they're wards of the state, they don't have any standing. We have standing. That's the discussion I was getting in today. Is that we are perfectly set for anyone that comes to us and says you can't do that, and said no, 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 just a second, you work for us, we don't work for you. We are not part of that matrix. We are, and pretty soon I'm going to start dodging bullets.
Neo.
Neo, yeah.
You just
but
need
but
a
that's
black cape.
exactly that's exactly how the process is going to be because the system was always tries on a daily basis. The system tries to draw us back in. I had one call us today and saying, "Well, I couldn't do this job." She's a hairdresser on movie sets. I can't do this job because I have to do such and such a form. I said, well, fill it out, but this is how you autograph it. If you autograph it that way, they're going to accept it. They don't know what your autograph's saying, but you've put a telling autograph there. So she did it with the proper syntaxing. And then after it, said, put comma, trustee. They'll still take it because all they're looking for is all they want is ink to the paper. But if you're down there as the trustee, that means you're ahead of them in the line.
Now, will you offer through your course like questions, like if people have specific circumstances, um, like
In general, questions that can be learned from the system, yes. But what I've been doing is somebody says, will you take me on for this, that, and the other? I charge $100 an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, if somebody's got like this woman that's getting her place foreclosed on and everything else, the only reason she's getting it done is because she didn't do what she was supposed to do. And she admitted, she said, no, I didn't do that. I said, well, now
Right.
they're coming after you
Then,
because you didn't send them the proper notice. If you had sent them the proper notice, they didn't have grounds to stand on. So by not sending them the notice. So, but most things are covered over in the course, or you can be referred back to it. And one of the tier levels, the tier 2A, is for an extra $25 a month rather than paying $40 a month for a reduced AI presence. You can join in, and I've negotiated this thing where you get 8 AIs in a package that it goes out to the one that does the best thing for you, whether it's copywriting or thinking or anything else. And people say, well, AI is going to sink us all. I said, no, if you don't learn AI, you're going to be sunk because it just cuts down not only the time, but I've put 350 books into it. When I'm working with it, there's no way I could take the time to research those books, but I'm saying this is a genre we're in. This is what I want to do, and it's instantaneous. It says, okay, we got those up and we're ready to go. So it's learning those tools. So we're going to have those types of things as well. And I think older people, I mean, I'm young at heart. As I said, I run at the speed of a 45-year-old. I'm 73, and I'm not slowing down at all. In fact, they're saying to me, "Why don't you slow down a bit?" I says, "Okay, who are you going to call? You're always calling me, so who are you going to call if you don't call me? Which one you want to call?" And here I am. So, but I enjoy doing it. It keeps me young. Keeps me young. I take three
one
days off.
last question, and this is just because we have a specific situation, and I don't know if this would be covered. Our property is owned by Perry's Corporation,
Yes,
our land. Is that make it more complicated or less complicated, or is it a factor at all?
and the
Would we
corporate.
have to
Well,
buy our property, like take it back to
well,
our,
they tricked people into getting corporations. When we were growing up there, it was a thing, man. I got my own corporation. I got my own limited liability company. Well, there's no limited liability corporations in Canada anymore except for Alberta. That's the only place there's LLCs. Everything else is now back to the directors are on the hook for everything.
Hopefully
So
on
you're
hook
the
anyway.
direct,
Yeah.
you're on
Yeah.
the hook anyways. So it's personal. So if you look in the land registry offices, if you have any access to that, or even go online and look at a land registry, you'll see all these transfers for $2. And what
yeah.
they're doing is the company is selling it over to the director for $2. And then the director is doing what's called a quick sale and registering on the land registry office with their alloidal title and their letters patent, and they're taking control of their property. Then you go and have a sit down with your local council and say, listen, give me the aspect of these taxes. What am I paying taxes for? Okay, well, I don't get those services or I don't need that level. Like right now, I'm paying $600 a year for my taxes on my property because it has a tiny home and two movable vehicles. As soon as I build a house on it, it's going to be $7,000 taxes. Well, excuse me, guys. I'm sorry. I own the property. You don't, because I'm going to take it out of the land registry. But that's why they went and changed the land. See, as we adapt and as we do, they're adapting as well.
Fine.
So we used to up until June 23rd of 2024, 2024, we were able to see what our CUSIP number was, our social insurance number. You can't get that anymore. You have to go through a stockbroker to get that. Okay, so you can't find out what
So
your
they
value
know
is.
they know we're on to it.
Well, sure, and they're just putting up blocks, but that doesn't mean you can't get it. You can also pay $250 US for somebody in the States, and he's got his system and he's able to backdoor it. He can do it, but it doesn't really matter. Does it really matter what you're worth? You make it. I made the value for what I am. So if you stop the recording now, I will tell you what that is worth. But
Well,
Okay, are
and
you
John,
still
I know
recording,
Chris,
Chris?
John has to go. So,
No, I know, but I just wanted to make sure that that situation is covered under general information kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's moving stuff over into what's called the res.
Yeah.
Your trust has a res, and the res has everything in it, which is your private property security lien against the property. It's got your house in it. It's got your car if the car is of any value. It's got a piece of silver so that you're not considered a pauper. If you have a piece of silver attached to your trust, you're not considered a pauper. They can't arrest you. You have a value. Okay, so there's all these little things that are hidden in the background that they don't tell people.
Yeah.
Say, oh, that's crazy. I said, yeah, it's crazy until such time as you need it. So, all
No,
right.
thank
All
you
right.
so much. We so
So yeah, we
appreciate
really,
it.
Good for
really
you,
looking
Perry.
forward
You
to.
stayed up this late. You've stayed up this late, Perry. Good for you.
I've been at this desk.
So
I'm sitting at this desk all day, John. I
I
big
sat
plans to go
down here at
outside.
9 o'clock this morning, so I'm 12
Yeah,
hours now. So,
Oh
yeah,
my
me too.
God.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
No. It's, I know it's tough. I so
But
appreciate your time.
really, yeah, I
Keep
really
us
appreciate it.
posted about like how your website
Yeah.
is doing, what kind of dates we're looking for in August. Like it
I'm
looks like,
hoping in 10 days the basic site will be up, and then
okay,
we're starting to propagate it with the lessons, which we're aiming for mid-August to beginning of September. But
okay,
the basic website and the first tier will be open, which will allow people to get in and start reading. The biggest thing with this is the reading.
yeah,
People have to be willing to read. If they're not willing to learn, go
There's
somewhere
no hope.
else.
Yeah,
We don't
yeah,
we
yeah,
don't we don't
yeah.
need you because it holds everybody back because you start asking the questions. If you've read it, you wouldn't have the questions, right?
yeah,
Right.
So,
yeah.
all
No.
right, guys. I guess
Very
I
good.
push this button and it says bye
Yes.
bye.
Bye
Bye-bye. Thank you so much.
bye.
Hi to Joan. Thank you
Okay,
again,
bye
John.
Thanks.
bye.
Thanks again.
Take
Bye
care.
Bye
bye.
bye.
Okay, bye-bye.